so great I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. The God's with the king over here just the same. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes? Shit.
After they, it's a rematch of last year against the Mavs. I'm gonna be honest, nobody on the Clippers can guard Luka. I mean, he can. I mean, he's been what he had like a 30-point triple double last game. So nobody can really guard him. And the Clippers' problem is, down, in the clutch, whether it's Paul George or Kawhi, they just aren't getting it done. So I would say that the Clippers would be like the number one team that I would say that they should be on upset watch. And I feel like the Mavs have a really good chance to to ultimately upset them.
Blaine, I'm going to ask you the same question. Like, in your estimation, who is the team that we should have on upset alert?
I'll tell you right now, the Nuggets are not going to beat the Blazers. The Portland Trailblazers will beat the Denver Nuggets. I have them. I actually think I don't even think it's going to be close. I think Portland's going to beat them in 5. Gentlemen's sweep.
Ooh.
I think it's going to be in 5. They're going to beat them in Denver. I think Denver will win game 2, which is tonight. Portland will take both of them at home, and then they'll close it out in Denver. Because I really think that how game 1 unfolded is just how Portland and how every team is going to have to guard the Denver Nuggets to be successful. You force Jokic to beat you as a scorer. You make that playmaker ability that he has at a point center, and you take that away. He only had 1 assist in game 1. I think people really don't realize how much of a stat that really is. And then, of course, you have Dame Dalla. You got CJ McCollum in that backcourt. That dynamic duo, probably the most underrated backcourt in the NBA, in my opinion. And then if you're getting Carmelo Anthony giving you 15 to 18 a night, it's over. It's over. Mm-hmm. And without Jamal Murray, he is a huge factor. What he did in the bubble last year was remarkable, but I think it's over. I got Portland beating him, taking down Denver in 5.
In 5.
In 5.
Wow.
In 5.
I love it already.
Bull takes only today, all right? Bull takes only.
I'm with you on that. So, Neil, as a Lakers fan, are your Lakers possibly in danger of losing a first round series, or do you have another series in mind?
Well, okay. First, let me start by saying, with that Lakers series, I still think it is possible for the Lakers to win. As we were talking before earlier today, the Phoenix Suns taking nothing away from them, taking away nothing from their ability to score the basketball, and Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton, not taking anything away from them. I still think a healthy Lakers team can and will beat the Phoenix Suns. The unfortunate thing is in game one, I wasn't sure if it was health, if it was conditioning, or if it was just, not mentally able to deal with that game. They looked sluggish. They looked slow to the gate. They made bad decisions. Meanwhile, Chris Paul, even though he was injured, he looked steady. Devin Booker played great. And I could not believe DeAndre Ayton made our big front court look as small as they did. Every time the Phoenix Suns, don't rub your hands, Justin. Don't do that to me. Every time they got a rebound, every time the Phoenix Suns got a rebound, an offensive rebound, I was like, okay, maybe that is some other player from Phoenix that I don't know. Lo and behold, it is DeAndre Ayton pulling rebounds over Andre Drummond and Montrezl Harrell and AD. And I'm like, what is happening here? Right? There were some defensive mix-up on the perimeter. It was just a crap show, right? So I think once the Lakers are engaged physically, mentally, they cannot be beaten by the Phoenix Suns. But unfortunately, we have to see which Laker team is going to come out. Now, back to the point of which upsets I see happening. I actually would say that I can understand the Denver Nuggets take, the Portland beating them, because Portland is a scrappy team and could potentially do it. But you know how I feel about the Clippers, Justin. You know that I fully believe I have lost faith in the Clippers for about 2 years now, right? And definitely this year, and definitely because they dropped that first game, I definitely don't see them beating the Mavericks. I just don't know what it is. I don't know why the Clippers cannot produce in a series where they can actually take command and advance to, let's say, the finals, or even to the Western Conference Finals at this point. But it seems as though, even though the game wasn't completely terrible from Paul George and Kawhi Leonard's stance, that team is not as good as it was last year, in my opinion. And couple the fact that you have Luka now coming into his own, coming into his own. The man is 21, 22, and is taking over the league by storm. You have Kristaps Porzingis playing well. You have players like Tim Hardaway Jr., who is earning his keep. You have good players on that squad that they're making it a competition for the Clippers, and the Clippers don't look like they're able. So for me, if I was to say any upset in this first round, it has to be the Clippers. I cannot see them getting past the Mavericks, and it wouldn't be no sweat off of my bro.
Of course not, right? So let me start off by saying I love Blaine's take, and that's where it initially was going to go. And I still believe that Portland will take care of Denver because, as you said, there's no Jamal Murray. Portland figured out, as you correctly said, just make Jokic one-dimensional in terms of being a scorer because he really doesn't want to pass. And I think that is his best attribute. And on top of that, Damian Lillard, we've seen Damian Lillard win series on his own. We've seen Damian Lillard beat more talented teams. Like, I remember that OKC team, Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and I think Carmelo was on that iteration of that Thunder team. And that being said, I still believe in Blaine's take. Yeah, I have to crap on the Clippers here. Because, first thing first, last year, that Mavericks team took the Clippers to 6 games without Kristaps Porzingis. That's one.
Exactly.
2, as Miles correctly mentioned, they have no answer for Luka Doncic. Like, none. Whether, Kawhi Leonard, for whatever reason, refuses to mark him, and he can't mark him an entire game. Paul George and Marcus Morris, they can't guard him. And then it doesn't matter because all he does, and Luka, is headhunt matchups. So he just runs a bunch of pick and rolls until he gets, Reggie Jackson or Patrick Beverly. and they can't for
Too
sure
small.
switch off.
Too small. I was about to say that.
Too
No,
small,
you
man.
missed
Too
the word.
small.
Too
Well,
effing small.
this is a family-friendly show. This is family-friendly show.
No, too effing small. Like, and then what makes it worse is that those pick and rolls are so much more unguardable because they play true 5-0. Like, Kristaps Porzingis does not want to score in the paint. Neither does Maxi Kleber. They're all spaced from the floor, and you saw what finally Tim Hardaway Jr. had a good postseason game. On top of that, there are two other things. That was Luka's third triple-double in 7 playoff games against the Clippers. Third.
All right.
But I know, Neil, you forgot this point. Earlier in the season, the Mavericks destroyed the Clippers by 50 points. 5-0. Granted, Kawhi Leonard did not play in that game. But how, as you as an organization, doing your best to run from a matchup against the Lakers, run into a team that destroyed you by 50, where you cannot guard their superstar, and now that superstar has Kristaps Porzingis. And there is no...
Oh, Justin is frozen. I think that's probably for the best because you know I know he's a Phoenix Suns fan, and I know he would want to kind of continue to gloat and crap over my Lakers, but I think we all agree with the point that he was trying to make in terms of the Clippers not being up to the task. As he rightly said, the Mavericks did cremate them by Luka is comfortable. Luka is exactly where he wants to be. So I think Justin, you there?
Yeah, but you can continue.
Oh, you were listening to me. Okay. No, I was saying that I agree with you. I can see that not Justin got me talking foolishness, but Luka is exactly where he wants to be. Luka is comfortable. As you said, he headhunts matchups that are to his favor. So Pat Bev, anytime he's on the floor, he's going to get taken advantage of. The Clippers, and to be honest, I think no one is afraid of Pat Beverly at this point. Pat Beverly, everybody, probably 4 or 5 years ago, maybe, but now people just be like, all right, you could just bark all you want, Chihuahua. Just, do what you got to do.
Well,
So
and
Justin, take it away.
Kawhi and PG, their calling cards were defense before they really turned on their offensive game, and they won't take on that challenge of trying to guard Luka right now. They don't want any part of him. They think they're going to get embarrassed every time they take him on one-on-one. So,
yep,
they haven't been able to really guard in their past playoff series, whether it was Luka in the bubble or whether it was Jamal Murray dropping 40 points in that game 7. It's like, when is Kawhi? He's only 29 years old. Like, you can play both. You should be able to play on both the offensive end and the defensive end. So it's like you should be that two-way player, and that's what the Clippers brought Paul George and Kawhi for. And at this moment, they're not living up to it.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of not living up to things, Neil.
Oh dear.
The Lakers threw up a dolly in Game 1, scoring only 90 points in a 99-90 Game 1 loss on the road at the Phoenix Suns.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a Lakers fan, Neil, obviously I'm going to start with you.
Obviously.
Who is more to blame for that defeat? Is it LeBron James or Anthony Davis?
I would be, it is funny. I was thinking about this, right? And I was going to go into my whole Stephen A. Smith and say anybody in a Lakers jersey is at fault, right? But I can actually take a different spin. I can actually say that Anthony Davis looked subpar. He looked ordinary in my estimation. Like, I literally could not understand how he was being so ineffective in shooting the basketball, settling for fadeaway jumpers outside of the key, not going aggressively to the paint. And even when he went aggressively to the paint, it almost looked like the Suns, which I will not take away from them, they made a concentrated effort to make sure that anytime he got the ball going into the paint, he was contested. He got some blocks here and there on him. But to me, he needs to be more aggressive. He needs to understand that past DeAndre Ayton, there is no one else. There is no one else for him to worry about in terms of defense. And he can eat at Joe's anyone that is at the 4 or at the 5. Granted, Andre Drummond could shoulder some of the blame, but we kind of expect that Andre is not going to be that offensive force that you want. He's there to grab rebounds and be a rim protector. And even then, I found that he wasn't completely effective in doing that in game one. LeBron James, to me, did not look, and I know some people are going to say this is, making excuses for LeBron or whatever, but in my estimation, he looked disengaged. No, I don't know if his health is bothering him, if that ankle is still giving him some issues or whatever, but he did, I don't know if it's fatigue, but he did not look like the LeBron James that will put his head downhill and go to the ring. And, we still need Kyle Kuzma. Well, as Shaq would say, the others, we still need the Kyle Kuzma, the Contavious Caldwell-Pope, and the others, Wesley Matthews and Dennis Schroeder, who played all right. We need them to step up in a bigger role, especially on defense, because the perimeter defense looked atrocious here. They had moments where Devin Booker, what was the other guy's name? Chris Paul was injured, but their perimeter guards got past us so easily. I couldn't understand what was happening. And then there was one, actually the play that made me shut off in the fourth is when someone drove past, I think it was Alex Caruso. He got to the paint. Andre Drummond, I guess it was a mix up in the switch or whatever, but he was like, maybe I should step, maybe I should leave my man. And he let that person go in for uncontested layup. And I'm like, even LeBron was looking around like, what was happening right now? What's happening? You're seeing a lot of driving kicks into the far corner, no rotation. LeBron James having to sprint from the guard all the way down to the corner, all the way to the paint. Like, it seems as if the Lakers, I don't know if they're mentally fatigued, physically fatigued. I don't know what it is. And I know the question is, who do I blame more, LeBron or AD? I would say AD, but you know what? I'm going to go with my Stephen A. Smith, and everybody in the Lakers jersey has to take the blame.
Blaine, do you share that sentiment, Anthony Davis, more so than anyone else?
Actually, I honestly could have seen Anthony Davis having a bad game one. So I'm going to actually put the blame on LeBron James, because in the bubble, AD had a horrible game in every single series, basically until the NBA Finals. He had a very bad game one against Denver. I can't think of who they played in the first round on the top of my head, but until they played the Heat in the first round, they didn't have a true solid game one. And the way he plays, especially in game one, he tries to get a feel of how the team's going to defend him. So that's why he settled so many times for jump shots. Because now I think you're going to see him play bully ball in game two, and he's going to say, all right, DeAndre Ayton, you say you want to play bully ball. I don't think you're really ready for my type of bully ball. Like, I'm a top 5 player in this league. So I'm going to put the blame on LeBron James. I would honestly agree with that the whole Lakers squad is to blame, because you shoot 26% from the three-point line. You have no business in winning the game.
No.
But LeBron James did not get into a groove and take any initiative until 6 minutes left, really, in the fourth quarter. And at that point, Phoenix was up double digits.
Yep.
So you have to, if you know Anthony Davis is going to come out slow, you've seen that through the first 3 quarters. LeBron's got to say, all right, I got to look to score. I can't be passive. I can't try to get everyone else involved, because the team wasn't delivering. So especially in that second, I wanted to see more from LeBron. You didn't get it. So I'm going to put the blame on LeBron James.
Miles, Anthony Davis or LeBron James for you?
No, I feel like blame has to go all around. But for me, I'm going to have to say Anthony Davis. And he had an atrocious game. I mean, 13 points, 5 for 15 shooting. DeAndre Ayton totally dominated him. I mean, it looked like he didn't. I mean, Anthony Davis, I think he had 5 rebounds, 5 or 6 rebounds. I mean, that's unacceptable. He should be having at least 10 rebounds a game. If you're not, I can understand maybe if you don't have your shot on, but the rebounds is an effort thing. And obviously his effort was not there. I mean, he even said it that, they can't win a game or a series if he plays like that. So I think he has to blame. But he has got to step up. Obviously, LeBron being 36 years old, he's not gonna. Obviously, in his game ones, he tries to feel it out. But in that specific game one, I mean, Chris Paul was injured and it was right for the taking. I mean, it was still like a 9-10 point game in the fourth quarter. It was still hovering around there, like y'all could still come back. So I feel like some blame has to go on LeBron James just for not taking over. But I think the main reason why the Lakers, lost that game was because of AD's atrocious performance. But as, a Bron fan, I'm not really worried at all because with Devin Booker having a career night, with DeAndre Ayton only missing one shot, having like 16 rebounds, and the Lakers, shooting abysmal from three, AD and LeBron only combining for 31 points, they still only lost by single digits. So it shows me that, next game, if LeBron has a monster game, or if AD has a monster game, I expect the Lakers to pull out a win.
So I'm going to jump on the Anthony Davis hate wagon here tonight, make that 3-4. And here it is, minus 18 in 39 minutes, 5-16 from the floor. And then I think the worst part of this entire night, as y'all correctly mentioned, you had DeAndre Ayton look like the second coming of shot. DeAndre Ayton by himself had 8 offensive rebounds. This is so that 8 offensive rebounds by himself. You just can't, that you can't allow that to happen if you have championship aspirations. But the biggest problem for me where Anthony Davis is concerned, and wait for it now, his refusal to spend most of his minutes on the floor playing 5. Your refusal to do that forces Frank Vogel to play bad players. And I'll list them for you. Andre Drummond is not a good player at this point in his career. He is not. Let's not dance around this situation. Andre Drummond should be coming off the bench on this team.
You've changed, Justin. You've changed. You're talking about hate. You've changed, Justin. You've changed.
I'm that guy. You can't be playing Andre Drummond big minutes, or you can't be starting in this situation, especially if a Phoenix team that is not really playing big to begin with anyhow, and you're playing 2 big men at once, and you're still getting out-rebounded by, I want to say, about 10 or 12 rebounds. So but the problem is Anthony Davis is so fragile that he doesn't want to play him huge minutes at the 5. Then it leads to you having to play people like Marc Gasol. Now, granted, Marc Gasol did not play in game 1, but you picked up Marc Gasol for the season when he was basically retired, and he should have stayed retired. And to show you what I mean, right, about Anthony Davis having to play 5, just look at what the lineup that Lakers close up with. Frank Vogel is so stretched for good players that he trusts no one. So he plays Anthony Davis at the 5, LeBron James at the 4, and 3 wing players. This is what should be starting to begin with. And you just can't have somebody like DeAndre Ayton in his 3rd year, first playoff game ever, having that sort of dominant effect, as Miles said, just missing 1 shot and having, 16 rebounds, 8 of which on the offensive end. No, it has to be Anthony Davis. For me, I'm not starting Andre Drummond. I'm going straight to the lineup I know as best. I'd even go, and this is going to sound weird, but hear me out when I say this, I'm bringing Dennis Schroeder off the bench too. He is their 3rd best player, but I do believe it's a bit of redundancy because Dennis Schroeder is best when he has the ball in his hands, and he can't have the ball in his hands when LeBron James is on the floor. That's just real. And if he has Andre Drummond coming off the bench with him, he can run pick and rolls with him, and he can attack the rim at will because he won't have to worry about Anthony Davis or LeBron James's way, and then make that lineup change. But Frank Vogel is not that good of a coach, and Frank Vogel does not have the balls to bench both Andre Drummond and Dennis Schroeder. But we'll see.
Well, hold on a minute, Justin. This
fired at Vogel. Shots fired.
Yeah. Justin never like Frank Vogel. Don't let it be like a today thing. But I do agree with something that Blaine said, right? And I want to hit home on it because I think that Anthony Davis has to understand, like, DeAndre Ayton is not that guy. He cannot defend. Anything in the paint belongs to Anthony Davis. I don't want to see any more fadeaways. I don't want to see fadeaway over the left shoulder or right shoulder fadeaway outside the paint. No. If I am LeBron James, because as you say, Frank Vogel, he doesn't have the balls, I would go into AD's area and say, brother man, you have to eat this man. This man, and this has nothing to do with if you play well, we win or whatever. It is legit a pride thing. There is no way DeAndre Ayton should be outplaying you. He is not as good as you. He is barbecue chicken. And outside of DeAndre Ayton, they have nothing else to stop him. So to me, Anthony Davis has to be looking and saying, to me, anything in that paint belongs to me. No offensive rebounds. And this goes to Andre Drummond and Montrezl Harrell, because they cannot let DeAndre Ayton get 8 offensive rebounds. 8 offensive rebounds, that is unacceptable. So they have to make a concerted effort to say, you know what, let Devin Booker kill us. You know what, let Chris Paul make great decisions. But there is no way that DeAndre Ayton is good enough and dominant enough, or shoot, even dominant, to say that he is allowed to roam so free, get these offensive rebounds and only miss 1 shot. He didn't have to do any. It looked like to me he didn't have to do much work against a front court of Montrezl Harrell, AD, LeBron James, and Andre Drummond. So, you know, I could make excuses about the not excuses. Sorry, I could be critical of the perimeter defense, but let's be honest, guys. It can't happen down low like that. The front court has to be better.
Anthony Davis should easily be the best player in this series, and it shouldn't even be close.
Easily.
Like, that's
correct.
how much of a mismatch it is against DeAndre Ayton.
Yep. Fact.
Well, speaking of mismatches, Chris Paul, as we all saw, had a funny neck shoulder injury.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll start with you, Blaine. Is there a way that Phoenix can actually compete with injured Chris Paul?
I would say yes at the moment now. After what I saw from game 1, I would say yeah, because there's this guy called Devin Booker who's an ascending superstar. I mean, the issue with them is that does Phoenix have enough depth to actually can hang around with the Lakers? Because the Lakers usually will go 9 or 10 deep. And I think Phoenix only played 8 guys, maybe 7 with real substantial minutes. And you saw it in the bubble with Phoenix without Chris Paul. They went 8-0, almost snuck into that playing game. So you know they have the potential to do it. And now that you've stolen 1, you really only have to win half the games left, right? You got to go 3-3 the rest of the way, and you end up winning in 7. But for me, realistically, I'm still going to lean Lakers. But if you have to say, can the Suns do it? I would say yes, just because of how special Devin Booker is as a scorer. And then you have, if Jay Crowder can give you enough and Mikal Bridges can give you enough, that's going to be the real telling sign of how Phoenix is going to do in this series.
You don't seem to agree, Miles. Give me your take on this.
Yeah, I just feel like the only possible way the Suns could push this series to 7 or 6 games is if Chris Paul is healthy, because obviously in game 1 they were missing Chris Paul's points. I think he had 5 points. Now he had 8 assists, but obviously a healthy Chris Paul isn't going to give you 5 points. And if he's in, and since he's injured, they'll obviously need more production out of guys like Jay Crowder, Mikal Bridges, Cameron Payne, and specifically Mikal Bridges and Cameron Payne. I just don't see them stepping up against LeBron and AD, guys that have just got off a championship last year. So I think that injury, I mean, we already saw how Chris Paul was shooting the ball. He didn't look right at all. So I think that will definitely hurt the Suns' chances if they had any chance at all.
All right, I'm going to skip Neil because I already know Neil's answer, so I'm just going to go right ahead. No, I'm playing. Jump in there.
Right. So, no, I agree with everything that Blaine and Miles said, right? But I'm going to have to choose my words carefully here. And this is not to, and again, this is not to take away anything from the Phoenix Suns. They're a great team, right? But the Chris Paul aside, whether Chris Paul is healthy or Chris Paul is not healthy, it comes down to the play of the Lakers, right? So even if the Suns are at 100%, as Miles said, you have Mikal Bridges, you have Cameron Payne, you have all these others that have to play well, regardless of if Chris Paul is healthy or not, to be substantial. Because now that he is out, Devin Booker is a hell of a player. And to be honest, I would be shocked if DeAndre Ayton has another game like he had last night, right? But let's be fair, for Chris Paul, for the Suns to actually be successful in this series, especially without Chris Paul, they have to rely on the Lakers playing like how they played last night. Let's be fair, because the Suns, Devin Booker is a hell of a player. The others can play well, but without Chris Paul, shoot, they'd be lucky if they win one game without him. So Chris Paul needs to play. The others need to play well. Devin Booker has to be on that same play as he played last night. And DeAndre Ayton has to be as aggressive. Keep doing what he did. And let the Lakers self-destruct because, and again, I don't want to take away from Phoenix because I don't want to say the old adage of it is the Lakers series to lose. But if the Lakers continue to play like how they play, it don't matter if Chris Paul is healthy or not, they will be beaten in 5. So I understand the question, but it has to come down to the Lakers regardless of what the Suns do. The Suns have done what they're planned to do. They played how they wanted to play, and they got what they wanted to get. It is up to the Lakers to decide if they want to make a series of it or not.
So it pains me as a Suns fan to say this, right? But even with a healthy Chris Paul, I didn't have us to win this series. I had it being competitive. And
somewhere Mario Loki is rolling over his grave.
Yeah, watching the show as we speak and cursing me and all manner of Beijing right now.
Kind of sounds, but then again, you have moved all things Wisconsin, right?
All things Wisconsin, huh? but Bucks in 4. So honestly, right? Like, reality is that we saw it after Chris Paul's injury. He had a problem going to his favorite right hand. And, he loves that pull-up jumper at the elbow going to his right. And he couldn't make that. And that is a significant blow for us because that is a huge part of our offense, late in games especially. Yeah. Because we saw the Lakers try their best, trap and double-team Devin Booker and force the ball in his hands. And when you do that on older Phoenix Suns teams, like, reality is the rest were not good enough to beat you. Now we have Chris Paul who can isolate down the stretch of games and, get his spot. Like, it's impossible to stop Chris Paul from getting his spot, especially at that right corner of the free throw line. You can't stop him from getting there. He's going to take that jump shot. It is clear that his right shoulder is hurting him, and therefore you cannot rely on that anymore. And that being said, your traps, your double teams of Devin Booker will hurt that much more. Because when you look at it, the rest of the roster, there is nobody, maybe with the exception of, what is his name hurting me now? The guy who used to play 4 for the 76ers, who comes off our bench and spells DeAndre Ayton. He is the only other player on that team who can reliably create his own shot. So I think Chris Paul's injury hurts a lot. I didn't expect us to win the series anyway. I will say that we will still make this a series because as good as Devin Booker is and as good as Chris Paul is, we are a very good defensive team. So we will always be able to stay in games. But I think Chris Paul's injury is just asking too much of Devin Booker on a very, very young Suns team, where outside of Chris Paul, the only other player with any playoff is Jay Crowder, I think. Yeah, that's probably about it. And on to injury. The Jazz held out Donovan Mitchell from game 1, although he seemed ready to play game 1. I'll start with you, Miles. Did the Jazz do the right thing by holding out Donovan Mitchell, although he said he was ready to go?
I don't think so. I feel like if Donovan Mitchell says that he's right, and I believe that he was a full participant in practice, so I feel like if he says he's right, then they should just let him out there. And it's the playoffs. It's not a regular season game. It's the playoffs. It's do or die. It's the time that they have been. This is the reason why they had a number 1 seed was for the playoffs. So I think that they have to have their star in there, and I wouldn't necessarily say the Grizzlies beat them without Donovan Mitchell, but it's definitely going to go like a 7-game series if they don't have Donovan Mitchell in there, and he is critical to what the Jazz do. So I know that he was pretty. I know he was pretty frustrated and mad about him, being ruled out of the game. And I would say that it wasn't the right call, especially if Donovan Mitchell says and he believes that he is 100% or at least healthy.
Blaine, same question. Should the Jazz have played Donovan Mitchell? And do you think they can beat the Grizz without him?
So for the first question, I feel like we kind of talked about this before we came on, and we were just saying they were just trying to steal a game. They were trying to steal game one by resting him and try and say, all right, give him a couple extra days. We saw what he got in practice or what he had in practice. It may not be 100%, but it was probably 70 to 80% from what I've been hearing from people I talked to in the Utah organization. And then more than anything, it was just trying to see the medical staff have way more power than we've actually realized in the NBA. Because the whole situation with Kevin Durant and James Harden in Brooklyn, now Donovan Mitchell in Utah, that they're trying to hold out their players as long as possible. And if Donovan Mitchell says, I'm right, I'm ready to go, as Miles said, you got to let him out there. You got to let the man eat. You saw what he did in the bubble in that 7-game series with him and Jamal Murray. It was something special to watch. So you know he can score. I know they're probably a little bit worried to see what he's going to do coming a couple months off of the injury. Probably have him on a minutes restriction, but they were really just trying to steal a game. And now that their hand was forced because they lost last night, and if they win, I thought they were going to probably sit him again game 2. You really just got to think about how they were trying to think about long term and trying to make a deep postseason run. And now that they've lost, you got to play them and you got to try and win this series because now you're in for a dogfight because Memphis ain't going to go away.
You feel the same way, Neil? Would you have played him from game 1?
It's interesting. I actually don't think I would have played him for game 1, but this shows me something. This shows me a lack of respect for the Memphis Grizzlies. In that, I think the thinking was, we don't play Donovan Mitchell. Let him get an extra rest. If we are so good that we can take game 1, and if they don't win and they take game 1, then that's fine. That's all right. But we can make it a 5-6 game series. No, the problem is that I think Memphis, especially coming off of the games they had to win to get into the playoffs to secure that AF seed, they are on a hike. They're young, their legs are fresh, or they don't need as much recovery. They are really hungry, and they believe that they can do it. And they have stolen game 1. The problem is that I think that they can possibly steal another game within the next 2 games. So you definitely can't play that game anymore with Memphis. You have to play Donovan Mitchell and make sure that he's 100%. I understand the thinking. I understand, you give your star an extra day or whatever to recuperate from the ankle injury, and just because it's really the long game that the Jazz would be playing. It's not they're not really looking at no with Memphis. They see that Memphis is a team that they can beat in 5-6 games, and then he would be healthy going forward. But what Memphis is showing us is Memphis is ready. Memphis wants it. Memphis believes that they can make it till the wheels fall off. They can make it. So with that said, because they have that thirst, that hunger, and that energy, that youth, that exuberance, they're playing like a team that can beat anyone. And if you give them an inch, they will take a mile. So I hope that this doesn't, when it's all said and done, that the Jazz don't look back at this game as a game where Donovan Mitchell should have played, even though, as your superstar, as Miles said, he's ready to go. He wants to play. He wants to get out there and take care of business. I hope the front office, they don't end up regretting the decision they made in game 1 and having this series go. Because honestly, let's face it, fellas, this goes to a game 7, for example, or shoot, Memphis gets up 3-2. I don't know, guys. I'll be honest to say, I don't know.
I know, though, Neil. And like Blaine said, I would have done the same thing. I would have tried to steal a game because my aspirations can't be just to beat Memphis. And yes, in 2 regular season games, I think Donovan Mitchell scored 35 in both of them against Memphis. But I look at it the other way around. Their best players, Ja Morant, Jonas Valanciunas, they want to score at the rim. And I have the best rim protector in the league in Rudy Gobert. I would figure I can beat them without Donovan Mitchell as well. And we saw them play their last 16 regular season games without him. One of them was against those same Grizzlies, and they pulled out a narrow win in the 4th quarter. And I think they went a respectable 10-6 down the stretch without Donovan Mitchell. If my aspirations are indeed title or at the very worst Western Conference Finals, I too would have rested Donovan Mitchell. Like, let's look at this. Look, players will always want to play. Always.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Durant was not ready. He played and had to sit
saw
out
that played
entirely.
out.
Yeah, we see players always want to play. And you have to protect themselves from themselves. So, I mean, maybe he was good enough to go. But if Blaine is correct, and I do believe in Blaine because I know he has these sources, if he's 70 to 75%, if an extra day or two is going to put him at 85%, and it's a Grizzly, all right, guys, let's be honest, right? And maybe it's because I am not as high on Ja Morant as everybody else. But
What?
All right, hold the phone.
What?
John Morant is putting everybody on notice that there is not just Zion Williamson. I'm the one in the playoffs right now. He's already done it in 3 straight games in the fourth quarter. Where's Zion? He ain't there.
X.
I'm not telling you.
Yo, this man was 5 of 10 against Steph and the Warriors.
All right,
As a Warriors fan, I
outbuilt
watched
Steph.
Ja do the dirty to me in the fourth quarter and the overtime. All right.
Yeah,
Oh
but
my
I
goodness.
cried.
You really have changed, Justin. Oh.
But your Warriors are not good anymore right now. So, like, I would take that with a grain of salt. So, like,
Don't be like that. Don't be like that.
I tell you, Blaine, I tell you, this guy is a hater's hater. The man is a hater's hater.
And I'm not telling you all that Ja Morant is not good. Don't get me wrong. But Ja Morant is not good enough to be beating a number 1 seed in the playoff series. Like, and I look at one stat, shooting like 30% from 3. There's no way. I know you have to come to the rim. You want to come at the rim. I have the best rim protector. I'm going to funnel you there. And this is no hate on Ja Morant, but just don't think the Memphis Grizzlies are good enough to be pushing Utah in this first round series. We're going to see Donovan Mitchell return tomorrow night anyway, so this point is moot. But like when he comes back, I think that's the end of that, and I think they win 4 straight games. Because like when I look past, let's for argument's sake say, all right, I agree with you all, and Ja Morant really is that good. Okay, what about the rest? Dylan Brooks, could that possibly be our second best player? Jaren Jackson Jr. is okay, but none of these players are all-star or future all-star worthy, or even like on the cusp of this. This is a ragtag unit that, as Neil correctly said, depends on his youth, scrappy defense, getting up and down the floor with Ja Morant. Yeah, like had Donovan Mitchell played game 1, Blaine, I honestly think this was a sweep.
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, if the Jazz play as bad as Rudy Gobert flopped last night, they're gonna get swept. So
I love it. Yep.
I'm just being real. No, I mean,
go ahead, Blaine. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just like to piggyback off of that, like I agree that Donovan should have played. They would probably. I would give Memphis a game. I was gonna give them a game if Mitchell played the whole series, just because I think Memphis would have gotten one at home. But now I think this could stretch to 6 now. I don't know if Utah will win 4 in a row, because I just don't know what you're going to get out of Donovan trying to immerse himself back into that offense, because they've played now 2 months without him. It's a completely different look of how they've been playing. Like Jordan Clarkson's getting 35 plus minutes. Now you're going to cut him back down to 25. That's 10 less minutes of him having the ball substantially. And then I don't know. I agree. Utah is going to win the series, but I think it's going to get a little bit more intriguing now after Memphis won last night.
I'll give you the final say on this, Miles.
I would say the Grizzlies, they're playing with a chip on their shoulder, though, because when they beat the Golden State, I don't know if everybody that's not a Grizzlies fan wanted Steph Curry to play the Jazz. Let's just be honest. And I feel like the Grizzlies have noticed that most NBA fans did not want to see them in the playoffs. So guys like Dylan Brooks, obviously Ja Morant, like they're playing with a chip on their shoulder, and that could eventually they maybe push this series to six or 7 games, just because of the grit and grind that Memphis team is having right now. Just the fact that a lot of fans are overlooking them and all that. So I still have the Jazz winning this series, but you can't underestimate this Grizzlies team's heart.
Facts.
So I feel I think I wasted Neil's talents today because one of the questions I drew up was who will win tonight's game 2 between the Bucks and the Heat. And even before we're finished this podcast, that is clearly been answered. Well, as I told you all, Milwaukee in 4. So let's start with you, Miles. Are you shocked at how bad Miami's being beaten? If you don't know, currently the score is 71-45, and the first half is not even finished as yet. There's still a minute.
Oh no!
Wow.
The Heat are getting.
I just checked it off my phone. This is.
Before I let Miles go ahead, though, I just want to tell Neil Hoyt, I saw this coming, and you heard me before the start of this show. I saw this coming. This Heat team is not last year's Heat team. This Bucks team is not last year's Bucks team. I told you.
But
Tyler,
I can let Miles speak, right? But I'm going to let Miles speak. But when you get to me, we can have a discussion, Justin.
I told you, Tyler Hero is not the same player he was last season. Goran Dragic just fell off a cliff. Jimmy Butler, in my estimation, just missed too many games. And now the Bucks, yes, they're not as deep as they were in seasons past, but they have a legit third player in Drew Holiday who will close games and who is arguably one of the best defenders, at least on the perimeter, in the entire NBA. So, Miles, I know I'm not shocked, but are you shocked at the current beatdown that's going on in Milwaukee?
Now, I would say that, and I'm looking at the stats. You know, the Bucks have already made 14 threes, and it's not in the first half isn't even over now. Yesterday, last game in game 1, they only made 5 threes. They were 16% from 3, and they still won that game. The Heat, on the other hand, in game 1, they made 20 threes. Like if you make 20 threes in the playoffs, 9 times out of 10 you're gonna win that game, and they ended up losing. So I expected the Bucks to shoot much better than they did in game 1. But I am surprised that that it is a blowout right now. I still think that it'll end up being, I say it'd be like a 6 game. Yeah, I said the Bucks in 6, and I'll end up sticking to that because I just feel like once it goes back to Miami, I feel like Jimmy Butler and them will probably get both of those games at home. But this Bucks team is way different from last year. Obviously, adding Drew Holiday, another guy. Obviously, Chris Middleton. He showed me a lot with that shot. He showed me that he showed me a lot because that Bucks team. The problem with them was they didn't have a closer, right? Whether it was last year, Giannis, he doesn't have a move outside, so he's not really that that guy that you can look to down the stretch. So it really comes down to Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. And I just feel like they have I think that they'll end up winning this series, and I've been very impressed with how Chris Middleton and how Drew Holiday have played.
Blaine, how many games did you originally give the Heat before you saw this beatdown tonight?
I had it going 7. I had it going the distance, but now I'm really contemplating how this is going to turn out. I'm going to have to agree with Miles that it's going to go 6, just because I think playing in Miami, there's a different mentality when the Heat play at home. And I thought Miles said it perfectly, like when you hit 23s, you have to win that game, especially when Milwaukee shot atrocious from the outside. And we were ridiculing how bad the Lakers shot. Milwaukee shot way worse, and they still won. So, and tonight's beatdown, it's a wrap when Dwayne Dedmon, no disrespect to him, is leading the Miami Heat in scoring, but Dwayne Dedmon was riding the bench in Sacramento before that trade to Miami. So I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I'm just stating facts.
It's facts.
And then I think for Milwaukee, the PJ Tucker and Bryn Forbes coming in off the bench give you 2 solid options. You have Bryn Forbes, a stretch guy who can really shoot lights out from San Antonio, and then picking up Tucker for that defensive prowess to put in that lineup at the end of games with Drew Holiday, DiVincenzo, Middleton, and Giannis. Like, they can switch all 5 positions, most of those guys, probably besides DiVincenzo, but Holiday, he's my best defender in the NBA, in my opinion, just because of what I see. What he does to guards is absolutely wild, of how he knows every trick in the book to get them off of their spot. But I'm going to have to agree with Miles. I think Milwaukee is going to win it now in 6. I had it going the distance, but now I knew Miami had to win game 1 if it was going to go the distance. So, and after this
Neil,
debacle, I don't know.
before you get in here, Neil, I want to remind you, I'm sorry I'm not playing the clip right now, that last year I correctly predicted that Miami would have beaten Milwaukee in that second round series. So I know my Milwaukee basketball, Neil. So I'm just throwing that caveat before we start.
Well, hold on a minute. You're saying that to say that I didn't agree with you. You're saying that to say as if, this was going to be a shocker. But no, let's talk about this series, though. Let's talk about this series. No, I agree the Miami Heat, they're not the same team from last year. I do agree Jimmy Butler missed a lot of ball. Tyler Hero is not the player he was last year. Goran Dragic is just a step slower. We can see that team is not what it was last year. However, I believe the Bucks will win this game in 5. Let's get that out of the way. Now, I hear the guys saying that the Bucks, they are, a different team than last year. And yes, they have some pieces, especially with Drew Holiday. I love Drew Holiday. I love his game. Chris Middleton is playing like the all-star he is. Giannis is Giannis, doing Giannis things. The team is great. But I hear this is a different Bucks team than last season. Y'all really think this Bucks team going to the finals? Y'all really see this Bucks team get...
So no, because I've moved to Wisconsin, I am obligated to say all things Wisconsin.
I was just about to say I'm asking. I was just about to say I'm going to ask our guest because you clearly have a bias. So
no,
you're obligated. You're obligated because I'm sure when you got to the border, they told you, they stamped your passport and said you have to say this. This is in the fine print. All things Wisconsin. So your word is null and void here. Yeah. So let's get the tape from Blaine and Miles. Do you guys think that this Bucks team can make it out of the Eastern Conference Finals?
I think they can. I personally think they can. I think that all of these teams in the Eastern Conference at the top, it's really a pick 'em, which either way you can go. Just because I don't know. Brooklyn finally played defense for one game in a series, but Boston is Boston right now. They are battened, bruised, and they have Jason Tatum, and that's about it. And then for Philadelphia, Embiid and Simmons, they got that there going for them. I just don't know. Brooklyn has to outscore people to really win the Eastern Conference. So I think I give Milwaukee a fair shot, especially with if they can shoot better than 16%, I'll give them a chance to win any of those games. So
I would say with the Bucks, no. I'll be honest, I don't have them coming out the East. I just don't feel like they have the firepower. But I mean, if they just shoot like this, they can beat anybody. 15 threes at halftime. A lot of teams don't even make 15 threes the entire game. So at half, that's ridiculous. And obviously with Giannis, a lot of teams are going to build a wall. So if the other guys can make shots around him, I mean, this team can really go the distance. I will say that. But I just feel like, once they, we all expect Brooklyn to win and Milwaukee, they'll end up facing them in the second round. So I think that Brooklyn just has too much firepower for the Bucks, but I do believe that the Bucks will push it to 6. So might give Brooklyn a little scare, but I wouldn't have them necessarily winning that series. But this Milwaukee team is definitely better than last year, and if the others can make shots around Giannis, I mean, this team can really go the distance.
Hold on a minute, Justin Marvel. No. Hold on a minute, Justin Marvel. Now we've heard from our esteemed guests, right? The point here is that the unfortunate thing that happened to the Milwaukee Bucks is that Brooklyn got James Harden and Blake Griffin. Milwaukee, as good as they have improved their roster, I am going to ask you, we're going to pretend as if you're not in Milwaukee. We're going to pretend that you don't have that stamp. Do you think that the Milwaukee Bucks will make it out to the Eastern Conference? And let's not talk about the hyperbole of the shooting the threes and everything. Any team that shoots 15 threes.
What I will tell you, Neil, do I think they will make it out of the East? No. Can they? Yes. And here's the thing, right?
Oh, I see what you're doing, Mm-hmm.
No, I'm going to answer for you. So I like Blaine's talking about, they brought in Brent Forbes, and they also brought in a very underrated piece in Bobby Portis. Him being able to stretch the floor for them off the bench is key. because before a lot of Milwaukee's success depended on depth, and I thought they lost a lot of it when they made that Drew Holiday trade. So picking up Bryn Forbes, picking up, as I said, Bobby Portis, also getting the 3-and-D guy Houston out of Houston. Why are names defeating me right now? Blaine, help me out here. Just know you just said the doesn't matter. 3-and-D guy from Houston.
Oh, PJ Tucker.
PJ Tucker.
Thank you, guys. PJ Tucker. That being said, the biggest pickup was really Drew Holiday, and I'll explain why. As Miles mentioned earlier, Giannis is not a closer because, as you know, he wants to get to rim, has no real outside moves per se, can't shoot, or at least not shoot consistently. Now, with the addition of Drew Holiday, you have two people who you can put the ball in, and also Giannis cannot shoot free throws well. With the addition of Drew Holiday now, you have him and Chris Middleton that you can start your offense and close games with two capable scorers from all three levels and are good free throw shooters as well. That means you can free up Giannis in the stretch of down the bottom of fourth quarters to go after offensive rebounds or just to protect the rim instead of looking to close your games when he does not have that skill set. You now have two capable players in that. And one is a very, very, very good defender. This series against Brooklyn that's coming, because I do not give Miami any shot at coming back after this. This upcoming series against Brooklyn will tell all, and I think is going to be a lot closer than people expect. Just because Drew Holiday is that guy. Do I expect him to cancel out James Harden or shut him down? No. But he will cause problems. Drew Holiday is that guy who will pick you up 90 feet, and he will make you defend at the other end, because it can guarantee you can't afford to put Kyrie Irving on him because he's too small, and James Harden is not good defensively out on the perimeter to mark him. Neil,
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
If Milwaukee can indeed beat Brooklyn, and this is no shot at Miles's 76ers, if you can beat Brooklyn, you are going to feel like you could beat anybody. And that's the reality of the situation.
Completely agree.
I'm not saying that they will beat the 76ers in the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm just saying, if you can beat that three-headed monster, in your mind, you're telling yourself, there is no team in front of me that I cannot beat. And as I said, it all comes down to those first two games. I felt that in the Eastern Conference, it was vital for one of those three teams, all three of those teams, to get that first seed, so you would not have to play the other two in successive series. And that is why I feel like 76ers really do have an edge, because you do not have to play both the Brooklyn Nets and the Milwaukee Bucks. So that being said,
hold on a minute, Justin. I just want to make one last comment on this. The one thing I would say that is in the Bucks' favor, if we pick up like PJ Tucker, Pat Connaughton, Bobby Portis, they have the bodies to throw at people, Jeff Teague. So like Brooklyn, granted, Brooklyn is all world in terms of offensive output, but the good thing going from the Bucks is that they have the bodies that they could consistently throw and clogging the key, in hounding the perimeter, in banging down low. That can kind of offset, Kevin Durant get into certain, like, at least we know that these guys can score, but they have the bodies to make it uncomfortable for Brooklyn, and that may be their success against Brooklyn. Just want to say that.
So that naturally segues into the final point for tonight, guys. Considering that obviously the Heat are not making this a series against Milwaukee, can any of the lower seeds, not named the 76ers, the Bucks, or the Nets, actually challenge any of those big three that I just mentioned? I'm going to start with you, Blaine.
Well, Miami is making me look real dumb right now, so that was going to be my answer. But I really just can't see anyone really giving those top three teams a real challenge. Like, I mean, New York and Atlanta, those are two really young teams. Philadelphia is going to beat them in 5. I have no doubt in my mind about that. Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, they're just too much of a problem. Miles has got the fist pump going. He's hyped about that answer. But the answer for me was Miami, just because they're the reigning Eastern Conference champs. And Jimmy Butler, when he gets going, it's very hard to stop him. But Now they're going to be down 2-0. I can't see them really getting past Milwaukee now at this point, being down 2-0. So I have really none of them.
Miles, can any of these lower seeded teams give your 76ers, the Bucks, or Nets a push in these playoffs?
Yeah, I don't see that. With the East, obviously the difference between the East and the West is that like the top teams in the East, they are elite, but the bottom half not so much, right? So I would say that Washington, I'm honestly predicting like it's going to be a sweep or 5 games. Obviously the Celtics, they don't have Jaylen Brown, and as long as they can have Jason Tatum can score 50 points. It still won't be enough, right? Against KD, Kyrie, and Harden. Then I would say with the Bucks, obviously, I have the Bucks pulling it out. So as of right now, I just don't see any team. Maybe the Hawks could upset the Knicks. But in terms of those 3 top teams, the Nets, the Bucks, and the Sixers, I don't see a lower seeded team being them.
I would like to see that Atlanta-Philly series, though. I think Atlanta, they'll put up some points. They'll make it fun to watch, at least. They might get swept, but they'll make it entertaining.
Neil, do you give Atlanta, New York, and Boston any chance against these top 3 teams?
Well, first, let me say I know Marsha is somewhere watching behind the scenes, and she's a Boston fan through and through. And I must say, condolences to the Boston Celtics, because they are not getting out of the first round. I think the loss of not Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown was a huge loss for them. I think that him going down and him being unable and available for this series means that they definitely are not getting out of that series. No, when it comes to the Atlanta series, I actually do think that New York is going to beat that Atlanta team, simply because I don't know why, but I feel as though they have it. They're playing at a very high level. We are seeing a very different Julius Randle, a Julius Randle that I really wish was still in LA. I really wish we had this Julius Randle. And then there are other players. Derrick Rose is playing well. You have the boy Quickly. Anyhow, he's playing well as well. So New York is playing well. Atlanta, they're young and they're scrappy as well, and they have veterans. Clint Capella is there. I never underestimate Trae Young and his ability to score baskets, as he showed the other night when he hit that go-ahead game winner. But all of the other teams, Washington is going to get swept, as someone said. Let me see, who else is there? The Bucks are going to go through. The Nets are going to get through. Miles said, the unfortunate thing about it is that the bottom half, I think from 6 down to 8, are not anywhere near as competitive as the first 3 teams up there. So in terms of an upset, the only upset I can see is, and I know Blaine would have said, if Atlanta-Philly would be a great matchup. I actually think that New York and Philly would be an excellent matchup. I think that would be great for the NBA. I think that would really be great for New York, obviously. I think that would be great for the Philly fans. And I think it would give them a challenge to really show what they're worth, and if they're ready, this is Philadelphia, of course, to get to the next level. Because
that series will be ugly to watch. The Knicks like to make the games ugly. Like that will be very difficult basketball to watch.
A low-scoring game.
But you know what, Blaine? I am from the 90s. I am my salt and pepper look is showing you that I know that era where a game finishing 80 to 88. That was a great game. So I am from that era, and to be honest, I think the NBA. I'm not saying
the game won't get
series.
that low though, because of how many fouls they're going to call, because of how ticky-tack the league is.
Yeah. Agreed. But I do think that style of basketball would be good for 2 teams like the Philadelphia and New York Knicks series, because I think those fan bases would really appreciate that style of basketball. And I think the purists and the fans at heart would really love to see at least one series go that route of defense amongst everything else, mucking it up, making it dirty, making it whatever. Because Philly can make it that kind of game, and I don't know if Atlanta can withstand that type of pressure. I don't know if Atlanta could deal with, Joel Embiid, waving to the crowd and being physical. I don't know. I literally don't know if they can withstand it. I think New York versus Philly would be a great series. And I really would like to see that. But other than that, guys, I think it's a done deal. I think we already know who's going to advance to the next round. The only series really worth watching, other than analyzing those top teams, would be the Atlanta-New York series.
I'm going to throw one last point in here before you go. The bottom half of the East is so bad. Take this now. Even if Jaylen Brown were to play in that series, it would not be a series. That's right.
Fair enough.
Even if Jaylen Brown were to play for the Boston Celtics, sorry about this, Marshall, but I have to say this. You've heard me say this again. Before his injury, I told people the Boston Celtics, the iteration of this team at least, is first round fodder. I've said it over and over again. They are lacking a key element in playmaking. No matter how good Danny Ainge thinks he is as a general manager, none of his best players are good playmakers. Jason Tatum is not a good passer. Jaylen Brown is not a good passer. And Kemba Walker is not a floor general. That's not who these guys are. All three of these guys are jump shooting players. That's what they want to do. And none of them have the ability to make players around them better. And until this happens, you're going to continue to see it. We saw Boston in three of the last four Eastern Conference Finals, but they're going to continue to get worse and worse. This Boston team, even if Jaylen Brown were fully healthy and Kemba Walker were fully healthy, we're going to get bumped by the Brooklyn Nets the same exact way. Not sure if y'all want to add anything before we go.
I was just going to say, for Boston, you thought they were going to be a team of the future, and now we almost think of them as a team of the past. There was no present. That was one quote that I heard on, I think Mike Greenberg said it the other day. You thought they were going to be the team of the future, 3 of the 4 Eastern Conference Finals, and now we're almost referring to them as they're going to be declining so rapidly. There was no present for the Boston Celtics, which is really intriguing to me.
Which is funny, Blaine, because one can say that about the same Clippers. There hasn't been a present for the Clippers.
I like how we ended on this note. Well, the Boston fan is in the chat telling me I've run out of time. I need to wrap up, but she's just doing that because she's bitter. But so I'm just going to cycle through this quickly. Miles, thank you so much for coming on. Let the viewers and the fans know how to find you and what do you have coming up.
Yes, so I'm going to have all hoops coming up with the NBA playoffs. So, you can tune in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify at Real Talk with Miles Johnson. Also have a YouTube channel as well. And, man, I appreciate you for having me on. It was a great show. Got to talk some great hoops and all that. So, man, I appreciate you.
Blaine, the same thing. How do we find you and what do you have coming up?
Yeah, I'm going to be talking some hoops as well. I'm actually got a podcast coming out tomorrow. We're actually going to talk about a little bit of the PGA that happened, Phil making some history, being the oldest major champion. I got some interviews actually coming out this week, so be on the lookout for that. I'm going to make that major announcement tomorrow, who we got coming on. We got a basketball star. We got a track star coming on this week, so it's going to be really intriguing. And I just appreciate, again, as Miles said, it was fun to talk with you guys. Hopefully I can get Miles on my show next time so we can work something out with that. But it was an honor. Justin, thank you as always.
As always, Neil doesn't have anything, so we don't need to bring up Neil. So, again, guys, on Thursdays is the IG Live with Adam Lewis from Water Off Season Pod. And then next week, we'll have NBA playoff mode. So hopefully we'll get a lot of Eastern Conference fodder out of the way so we can get down to the real series. But again, guys, from Miles, please, before you leave, subscribe, follow Real Talk with Miles Johnson. Final whistle. Please subscribe. Please go follow. Hit the like button. Smash that like button. But for Neil Hoyt, Blaine Spencer, Miles Johnson, I am the Justin of this Justin signing out. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll be back here. Same bat time, same bat channel. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
I don't have a mark on my face. State, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. The God's with the king about it. You're just the same. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes? Shit.